Look at it. How she is playing. It's so fascinating, right? Yes. But have you ever thought of forces act in this scenario? So imagine if the slide is too rough. Will she be able to do this? No way. So that's why we need to understand the importance of force. And that's what we're going to learn now. And we are going to have a wonderful lesson on the topic called force and pressure. Hey budding charms, I hope everyone is doing well, and we are back with the next one-shot session on the topic called force and pressure. And this is going to be a super amazing lesson, and please pay attention throughout the class and try to take down the important points. If you find any kind of doubts in between, please don't hesitate to ask your doubts in the comment box. I'm here to help you out, and my name is Aishwarya Sindhu Ramachandran, and I'm your science educator here, and we are going to learn everything together. So I welcome all of you to this wonderful lesson, the topic called force and pressure. Let's find out the contents and let's dive into it. So these are the basic topics that we will learn today. We are going to start off with the very first concept of force, then effects of force, laws of motion, types of force, thrust and pressure, buoyant force, and finally atmospheric pressure. So these are the topics that we will learn today. And are you excited? If you are ready, just give me a thumbs up in the comment box. So let's get started. Oh, look at this picture. You might have experienced this in your life for sure, right? So in your initial phase of learning cycle, you would have just got such a support from your father or your mother, right? Yes. Why? Because you should not fall down. You should not get any kind of injury. For that, you need to get some support from your parents, right? Yes. So, what has been applied by the father here? It's nothing but a force. I told you, right? To support you, the father has applied a force on the top of your body. And that is what the reason you are getting a support, and therefore you will not fall down from the bicycle. Are you getting my point? Yes. So what is meant by force? So force can be defined as a push or a pull exerted on a body. And what about its SI unit? It's nothing but Newton. It has to be started with a lowercase letter. Why? Because it is named after a scientist. So for that, you need to make sure that when you write the SI unit, you have to write with lowercase letters. Got it? This is completely wrong. Okay, if you write with uppercase letters, this is completely wrong. You have to write with lowercase letters because it's named after a scientist. But if you want to represent it, you can definitely make use of capital N. For example, 5 Newton or 10 Newton, you can do like this. And what is it? It's a vector quantity. That means it has both magnitude and direction. I told you force can be used as push or pull, right? But what are the various situations where we use these? Have a look at it. If you consider push, these are the various situations where we can use it as a force. How? To push a door or to push a trolley. What about this one? If you want to pull a trolley or if you want to pull something using a pulley system like this. So force can be either used as a push or a pull. Clear? And now we are going to talk about various effects of forces. So, what are the basic effects of force? What is meant by that? What are the changes that can bring by a force? That's what we are going to learn now. Look at it. Change in state, change in shape, change in speed, and change in direction. Okay? So, don't worry at all. I will explain to you one by one so that you get a good idea about it. So let's consider a ball at rest. Okay, so this is a ball at rest. Okay, so if I apply some force on it, then what happens? It can move, right? Yes, so it can be in motion. So that means change in state. Clear? Similarly, if I consider a ball in motion, I can apply a force on it so that I can make this ball at rest. Clear? So this is the same way that you need to learn. What about change in shape? I'm considering a ball again and applying some forces on it. So what happens? It can change its shape, right? So it can become like this, right? So I can change its shape, and therefore the second point is also discussed here. Clear? Similarly, change in speed. Look at it. If I consider a moving ball, okay, moving ball, and if I apply some force on it, what happens? So it can increase its speed or you can decrease its speed. Clear? So speed can increase or decrease. Both the possibilities are there. Clear? So I hope you are clear. So if you apply a force on a moving ball, there are two possibilities. It can either increase its speed or decrease its speed. That is why we generalized it as change in speed. Clear? Or in a similar way, if I try to kick a ball, what happens? Yes, you can change the direction too. Clear? So these are the basic 4 effects of force. And look at this one. Here we are going to discuss the types of forces. Very, very important. So forces are basically classified into 2 as balanced force and unbalanced force. So now we are going to discuss about balanced force in detail. So for that you need to consider a scenario like this. Look at this. I think there is a game going on. And what about the force acting towards right side? This is the right side. So the force acting towards right side is 50 Newton. Similarly, the left side has 50 Newton again, right? Yes. So when you look at the magnitudes, the values or the quantities are same, right? 50 and 50. Magnitudes are same here. So equal magnitude forces act in opposite directions. Am I right or not? Yes. Look at it. This is acting towards right and this is acting towards left. So they are acting in opposite directions. And what we need to find out now, you need to find out the net force. How to find the net force? Let me tell you, it's a very, very simple process. So net force. So let me write down for you. So net force equals. How to find this? Very simple one. So for that you need to consider the force acts towards right has to be positive. Clear? Similarly, the force that acts towards left has to be considered as negative. Clear? So the force act towards right is positive, the force act towards left is negative. So I am going to take the first one, positive force acting towards right side. So that is 50 Newton. What about the left side force? That is minus 50 because it is acting towards left side. Clear? So 50 minus 50 is equal to 0. Clear? So at this point we can say the net force is equal to 0. Clear? So this can be called it as balanced force. So if the net force is equal to 0, you can say that it's nothing but a balanced force. Clear? And similarly, we are going to talk about unbalanced force as well. So look at it, the same scenario, but look at the magnitudes. Towards right is positive, it's 50 Newton. Towards left it is 30, but it's going to be negative. Clear? Now we have to find out the net force. So net force is equal to 50 Newton, that is positive, minus 30 Newton. Okay, so what is the answer? It is equal to 20 Newton. That means the net force is not equal to 0. So if net force is not equal to 0, you can say that it is going to be an unbalanced force. That means unequal magnitude forces act in different directions. Clear? So this is nothing but about unbalanced force. Clear with the point? So now we are moving towards the next one. Look at it. It's all about Newton's first law. A very, very simple one. What is it? A body will remain as rest or uniform motion until unless an unbalanced external force acts on it. Very, very simple one. What is the meaning of it? So this law is also known as law of inertia. To understand better, we have to consider a scenario like this. So imagine if the ball is at rest. So if an object is at rest, it has a natural tendency to be at rest. But until when? Unless an unbalanced external force acts on it. So if I apply a force on it, it can change its state to motion. So imagine if I have not given any kind of force to the ball, then it will continue to be at rest. Clear? In the similar way, we have to take another example here. If the ball is in motion, The body has a natural tendency to be in motion itself. But if I apply some force on it, then what happens? It can definitely stop the ball and make it at rest. Clear? Clear with the point? So the body has a natural tendency to be in motion alone, but if I apply some force on it, it can change its state. Clear? So that means a body will remain at rest or uniform motion unless an unbalanced external force acts on it. It's a very, very important point. It should be unbalanced external force. It is not balanced external force. Now we are going to talk about inertia. We found that law of inertia is nothing but Newton's first law. But what is this inertia exactly? The tendency of an object to be at rest or motion. I told you, if a body is at rest, it has a natural tendency to be at rest always. Similarly, if a body is in motion, it has a natural tendency to be in motion always. So this tendency can be called it as inertia, and this depends on mass of the object. So when you look at these two bodies, you can see the masses are different, right? One has 5 kg, another one has 7 kg. So which one has more inertia? The body with more mass. So this has more inertia when compared to this one. Clear? So I hope you are clear with the point. Newton's second law, very, very important one. So what is it exactly? The force acting on an object is equal to product of its mass and acceleration. Oh, so we have to talk about the formula too. So F is equal to ma. So F is nothing but the force, m is mass, a is nothing but acceleration due to gravity. And what about its expanded form? F is equal to m into v minus u by t. So you can make use of these two formulae to make sure that you are applying it on numerical problems. Clear? And now what we are going to take is all about an example. Look at it. Here you can see that if I apply a force on it, so this force is going to be equal to product of its mass and acceleration. Clear? And now we are going to talk about Newton's third law of motion. What is it? For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. For that, you need to consider two bodies and they are going to collide each other. So what happens? The first body is going to apply a force on the second body. Similarly, the second body is going to apply a force on its first body. So we can take these forces as F12 and F21. Okay, the force applied by body 1 on body 2 can be called it as F12. Similarly, the force applied by the second body on the first body can be called it as F21. And if you take the magnitudes of these are going to be same, but they are acting on opposite directions. So look at it. F12 is equal to minus of F21. That means every action has equal and opposite reaction. Let's take another example of the same. So look at it. If you want to swim, okay, you need to push backwards. So due to that, a reaction will be formed and therefore you will move forward. Clear? So for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So now we are going to talk about types of forces again. So forces are basically classified into two types here as contact forces and non-contact forces. So what is meant by contact force? Force that occurs when two objects are in direct contact with each other. If two objects are in direct contact, then the contact force is generated. What are the various examples for it? Frictional force, muscular force, tension force and air resistance. So we are going to learn two of them in detail right now. It's nothing but muscular force. What is muscular force? Oh, if I want to take this pen, I need to apply some force on it. Force applied by effort to our muscles can be called it as muscular force. If you want to lift a box or if you want to pull a trolley or if you want to pull a bucket of water, you need to apply some force. So this force can be nothing but our muscular forces. And now what we are going to learn is all about the frictional force. What is it exactly? The force opposes a relative motion between surfaces in contact. So for that, you need to take a small example here. So here you can see that there is a road here, but it has a lot of irregularities. So if the irregularities are more, then the frictional force is also going to be more. You can see the vehicle is slowing down, right? Yes, it's because of the frictional force. Imagine if the road is so smooth like this. Oh, That means the irregularities are less and therefore less friction. Then the vehicles can move so smooth through this. So now look at it. We are going to talk about non-contact forces. What are these? Forces that occurs when two objects without being in physical contact with each other. So there is no physical contact with these bodies. Very important. For that you need to consider certain examples. Gravitational force, magnetic force, electromagnetic force and electrostatic force. So these are the various examples come under the category of non-contact forces. So here you look at it, you can see that it's all about gravitational force. What is it? Gravitational force is the reason behind our existence on Earth itself. Right? Yes. So the attractive force with which Earth attracts every other object with mass. So this can be called as gravitational force. So there is a force with which Earth attracts everything to the center of the Earth. This can be called it as gravitational force. And please understand that it's always attractive in nature. Okay, gravitational force is always attractive in nature. And this will be acted towards the center of Earth. This is all about the gravitational force and this is coming under the category of non-contact force. It's all about magnetic force. We know magnetic force very much in detail, right? But still we are going to revise it here. The force of attraction or repulsion between two magnetic bodies due to their poles. So if you consider a magnet has two poles. What are they? A north pole and a south pole. But if you talk about magnetic force, it can be either attractive or repulsive. Please understand the differences. Gravitational force is always attractive. But when you talk about magnetic force, it can either be an attractive force or a repulsive force. Both the possibilities are there. But look at this one. I have considered two magnets here. And if I try to make these similar poles come together, look at it. South pole and south pole. Both are similar poles. So if I try to make them close, what will happen? Repulsion. Look at it. It cannot attract each other. Instead, they will just move away from each other. That is what the reason we call it as repulsion. Let's take another example. Look at it. North pole and north pole. Again, similar kind of poles. What happens? Repulsion. They move away from each other. Similarly, when you talk about this one, North pole and south pole, that means I have considered opposite poles here. So if I consider opposite poles, what happens? We know that, right? Attraction. So they will come close nearby and therefore we can say it's an attractive force between different poles of a magnet. And what about this one? It's all about thrust and pressure. We know what is force, right? Force is nothing but a push or a pull exerted on a body. But what is the relationship between force and a thrust? Let's discuss that. So force acting per unit area can be called it as pressure. Please understand. Force acting per unit area is known as pressure. And that is what the reason we have a formula like this. Pressure P is equal to force divided by area. And the unit can be Pascal. But what is thrust? Normal force acting per unit area is known as thrust. Very simple. If I consider a surface like this and if a force acts like this, this is nothing but a normal force acting to the surface and this can be called it as thrust. Clear? So I hope you are clear with the point. And now we are going to take a small example on this. So here I have considered a surface and look at this. If I want to get more pressure, I have to reduce the area. How? I can make the end of the knife a bit sharp so that the area is reduced. So that what happens? The pressure can go high because pressure is equal to force by area. So if I reduce area, the pressure can go high. Clear? Similarly, if I talk about this one, you can see that there is a blunt end for this. So if I increase the area, means it is blunt. So it has more area so that you will get less pressure. How? Because pressure is equal to force by area. So if I increase area, then the pressure can go low. Clear? This is what the basic relationship that you need to understand. And due to the sharp end or due to the less area, you can say that it is going to create a small slit over there. And the blunt end tool cannot make any kind of slit because it has more area. Clear? So that the pressure is very low. It is not going to create any kind of slit here. Look at it. It's all about fluid pressure. What is meant by fluid pressure? the pressure exerted by a fluid in a container is transmitted undiminished in all directions. So for that, you need to consider a container like this, which is filled with water. And what is the relationship between pressure and depth? Pressure increases when depth is increased. How? So look at it, there are 3 outlets have been given here. So if I want to talk about the strongest jet, I must say about the sea. Why? Because when you go down, the depth is increasing, right? So when you go down, depth is increasing, so that what happens? The strongest jet can be seen at the lower end. Clear? So this is a place where the pressure is going to be maximum. So pressure increases with increase in depth. That is what the main idea that you need to understand. So weakest jet can be at A. Why? Because the depth is less here. The depth is minimum here. So if the depth is minimum, then you can say that the pressure is also going to be minimum here. Clear? If the depth is high at C, therefore you can say that the pressure is also going to be high. So buoyant force. So if you want to learn about buoyant force, you have to consider a body that is forcefully immersed in water. Just imagine if I try to just immerse a plastic bottle inside a container filled with water. Oh, it will come out automatically, right? Yes, it pushes upwards. Why? Because of the buoyant force. So the upward force exerted by a fluid and object is known as upthrust or buoyant force. So I will tell you the example again. I took a container filled with water and I tried to just immerse a plastic bottle. Okay. So the plastic bottle can experience an upward force so that it can come out. Clear? So this can be called it as buoyancy or buoyant force. So this depends on density of the fluid, volume of the fluid displaced and acceleration due to gravity. And this is not affected by mass of the immersed object. So there is no relationship between mass of the immersed object and its upthrust. It always depends on the density of the fluid, volume of the fluid displaced and acceleration due to gravity. Mass of the immersed object has no effect here. Similarly, density of the immersed object also has no effect here. And what is this? It's all about gaseous pressure. So gases exert same pressure on the walls of the container in all directions. Look at this picture. You can see there is a balloon and the balloon is filled with air. And this also can exert some pressure on the walls of it. That is what the picture has been given here. Look at it. It is available in all directions. Why? Because particles are continuously moving inside it and therefore it can exert the pressure in all directions. Clear with the point? This one, we are going to talk about atmospheric pressure in detail. So here, our atmosphere extends up to several kilometers above sea level. So we have a blanket called atmosphere and this is extended up to several kilometers. And what is happening here? The weight of air or the air particles can exert a certain kind of pressure on us. And this is known as atmospheric pressure. Clear? So you can see that this is how the atmospheric pressure has been applied on us. Clear? And I hope you are clear with the point. And now we are going to talk about the basic summary of it. So we have discussed multiple concepts today. We started with force, effects of force, laws of motion, type of force, thrust and pressure, buoyant force, and finally atmospheric pressure. So these are the various topics we discussed today and I hope everyone really enjoyed it. And that's the end of the class. We'll see you next day with an amazing session similar to this. Have a nice day and goodbye everyone.